Hey, welcome. It's Sunday, November 29th, the next to the last day of the next to the last month of the year, our last show for November. Time again for Ken and Glenn and a guy named Scott. It's that time. Let's welcome them in. Here are Ken and Glenn. And yeah, me, a guy named Scott. Hey, guys.
Hey, what's happening?
Hey, happy Thanksgiving week, gentlemen.
How'd everybody's Thanksgiving go?
Great. Absolutely wonderful.
Was it marvelous? Ken, would you go that far as to say it was marvelous?
It was marvelous. I would say it was marvelous, darling.
How about yours, Scott?
Real low key here. Tammy is back in Indiana. She had Thanksgiving back in Indiana with her family. Her brother came over, so I fixed the turkey, and the two guys watched a bunch of football. So it was a good day.
I saw that the Colts were losing in the fourth quarter. What wound up happening
they got
today?
their butts kicked today.
They
Team
did?
they beat 2 weeks ago. Crazy. Yep. Of course, we had 6 starters out with COVID.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
Wow, that's intense.
it was the Titans over the Titans and COVID beat the Colts today. Now the Titans played a fabulous game. I don't want to be a sore loser because they absolutely deserve to win.
Well, and this rolls right into tonight's topic is the
Wow.
importance of kicking people when they're down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Perfect segue, Scott.
I set them up, you knock them down. That's
Yeah.
that's my role.
Am I the only one feeling a little bit of Tommy Boy tonight? Like, I don't know.
Is that the shirt that Farley wore in the movie?
Well,
That's
that's the company.
That he worked for Callahan Auto Parts.
Auto Parts, yeah.
Tommy
Yeah.
Callahan.
Yeah. So let's see who all we have on here. We have Robert Brooker and Doug Wing is here. Brian Kelm,
Yes,
Gary
Brian, you're right.
Jerome.
It's lethal.
Scott Ricard. I like saying Ricard. It just, I don't know, rolls off the Larry Schneider, Eric Overly. You've got this bull and a butcher. Brad Costin. So Glenn, how about your Thanksgiving, dude? How was it?
But you know what? I'm prepared to say that it was perfect. We had an incredible day. Just Carolyn, my mother, and myself, just the three of us, very low key. And we didn't succumb to the belief that because it's 2020 and because of COVID and because of this and that it needed to be a lesser than holiday. It was fabulous. It was one of my favorite ones ever. We had a really, really joyous time and a simple time. We talked about things. That's one of the nice things about a downsized gathering is it's really intimate. And every year is kind of a Thanksgiving tradition. And I know we're not alone in this, but we talk about what we're grateful for. And we had a chance to do that. And it was just beautiful. So I'm feeling especially full in spirit and certainly a full tummy. And are you guys with me on this? There's a period of a few days that follows Thanksgiving where everyone is still under the influence of having eaten so much turkey that by Saturday, we just don't even care. We don't care about anything. Joan said something about a cat scratch. Why did she say a cat scratch?
I don't know. She started to ask something here and didn't finish.
Oh, she said, "What do you do? What did you do?"
What did you do? Why?
Oh,
I don't know.
well,
I don't
you know what?
she
I
means.
can actually see what she's referring to. Carolyn and I were out on a walk, and it was really windy, and it I don't know, it looks like something fell on my nose, but
Oh,
that's weird. That is so weird. Just a random Band-Aid flying out there, and
Gary,
you know. Joan, you win. I just said right before the show, I'm going to put a Band-Aid on my nose for no reason whatsoever and just see how long it takes people to bring it up. I'll show you closer. I have nothing going on, but it's just funny. I like doing silly, childish things sometimes, you know.
Yeah, Gary and Eric both. Joan says on your nose. Oh my God.
I auditioned it in front of the mirror, and I thought, is this a little more subtle? Couldn't figure out what I wanted to
See, on the nose, it looked like a breathe right, like you just running sprints before the show. And
you know, can I just tell you the old Band-Aid thing? Can I tell you when that one's fun? That one's fun when you go in for the table read of a major movie that starts shooting the next day.
Oh, jeez.
And the bigger, the funnier. And you don't have to say anything. In fact, the calmer you are about it, the more people. What do I win? You win ongoing friendship with the three of us, my dear.
That's right.
And that, to me, is priceless.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we could send you $1,000, but that just wouldn't be the same.
I'll buy you dinner, sweet girl.
I could do my old contest winner thing from radio, which is
What was
you
that?
win a 2020 Cadillac windshield, wiper, blade, box, label. Congratulations.
You just keep honing it down to the bare minimum. So what was it again? A windshield?
A
You
2020
get a windshield
Cadillac
wiper,
windshield,
That's
wiper,
funny.
wiper,
blade,
blade,
box,
box,
label.
label.
That is hilarious.
One time I did that, and I said, you win a 1990 Cadillac. And the girl goes, ah! She couldn't hear me do the rest because
Oh my
she was, Mom, I want a Cadillac. Just going off the deep end. Oh, no.
Can you say, Scott, can you say it with me? Lawsuit?
Yeah, really. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, gosh.
So everybody had a good Thanksgiving?
Indeed. I'm sharing this out right now, guys.
Oh, good. I tagged both of you in the thing. Whoa. Where'd that feedback just come from?
You getting a little feedback?
Where did you hear that?
I
did
did.
hear that.
That was weird. So what are we talking about tonight, fellas? I mean, we did have a 45-minute meeting prior to starting the show.
As we do every week.
As we do every week, yes.
You want to do Name That Tune and have the audience
Doug says
decide what they
somebody
want to talk about
actually
tonight?
spamming the comments. Yes, there is a lady in here putting spam comments in. We haven't seen that in a minute.
Well,
Where
it's
is that?
nice. It's nice that in honor of Thanksgiving we attract that.
Yeah,
Isn't that lovely?
she's Joan says very quiet. They're sharing, and I can't carry the whole load. I'm sorry, I can't.
I don't know if you guys can see this.
What does it
Scott's
say?
playing a game.
The caption on that is, Don, we now are Plague Apparel.
Wow.
I'm just
Don,
going to
we
sit
now
here and
are
enjoy my
Plague Apparel.
Ken and Glenn
Oh, I
with a guy
forgot
named
mine
Scott
tonight.
mode.
Ah,
Oh,
Well, you know, it's now receiving its hot beverages.
oh,
You know, it goes, the cups themselves even go through a season.
yeah,
Because when you first sent it, Ken, I was enjoying a nice iced drink for several months that
Yeah.
carried us through from Easter on through the summer and early fall. But now it's cold down here tonight. We went out for an evening walk, and you know, where your toes start getting a little bit cold, and you're grateful for a heater. and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I said, sweetheart, would you do me a favor and crank up a hot tea for me? And Mama walked up the stairs and brought me a hot tea.
Well, that was so nice.
Absolutely.
I was telling Scott about the movie last night.
I'm so
And-
sorry I missed that.
And
we watched Every Other Holiday, the film I did for Lifetime 2 Christmases ago, and it's beautiful. It's on the air. You can see it. If you have Hulu, any of you who have Hulu can watch it anytime. If you don't have Hulu, it airs on Monday the 7th on Lifetime. A wonderful Christmas movie, so heartfelt. And then Blair Hayes came and joined us toward the end and did a Q&A afterward. Blair is the director of the movie.
Wow.
And then also, Scott, this name might mean something to you. Do you remember, Ken, who came to see us? Little trivia time.
remember who?
The mother of the film, Dee Wallace, came to visit us.
Yeah.
She's still Dee Wallace Stone. She was
Correct.
for a while,
And
yeah,
Dee, of course, huge from E.T.
Cujo.
I never knew that when I was a little, little dude, that I was looking at my future wife, because Dee plays my wife in this movie.
Oh, very cool.
And it's great.
It's a
And you play a
great
priest?
movie.
I actually play a small town Tennessee minister.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding about the priest part. Ken had told me you played a minister.
Yeah. It was good. It's a great movie. Highly recommend it.
So we had fun, and it was also it was fun for me to facilitate an experience for a lot of Ken's tribe
Yeah.
that from the Grow Live Academy that I knew hadn't had that kind of experience, where you get to watch a film and then chat about it with the
That would be so
director
cool.
afterward. I've had so many of those I can't even count, but it's an extraordinary experience when you look at the creative forces behind a movie and a man's vision that turned out to be a beautiful, heartfelt film. And I'm very proud of it. It's probably one of my top 3 films of my
Okay.
career. I love that movie. So what are you
would
guys in
be
the
the
mood to
other
talk
two,
about
by the way?
tonight? What's that?
Rainey, I'll have a conversation with you offline for sure.
Yeah, reach out to Ken.
Yeah.
Green,
Send me a direct message. We'll chat.
and thank
What
you
would
all
be
over
the
there.
other two, Glenn, that you said it's one of your top 3 favorites?
The other 2 would be Black Hawk Down and a film I did called 84 Charlie Mopic, both war films. And this one just because I think this was the closest to me and my own heart that I've ever played. So I really wasn't acting. It was just a chance for me to be a puddle of love, and I really enjoyed that.
That's so cool.
And it's interesting when your career grants you the privilege of doing things that you would have done with your life. And one of the career paths that I considered at one point in time was being a minister. So to get to be one in a 90-minute movie was very special for me, and then I never wanted to be the president of the United States, but I always wanted to play one. And I had a chance to do that last week when I played LBJ. So that was fun.
Yeah. What about Under Siege? I mean, that was a pretty good.
It was a terrific film. Probably makes my top 10, but yeah,
That's the Steven Seagal movie?
yes, sir.
Yep.
And Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
Erica Eleniak. I remember.
Ooh, good name callback.
Wow.
Playmate for Playboy. And
What-
we met doing what is the beach movie? Not movie, the series.
Baywatch.
Baywatch, thank you. Yeah. So I guest starred on Baywatch. I think I tried to forget that. I actually do. I think I tried to create a mental override that I had not appeared.
Did
In
you
an
have a
episode
scene
of
in a
Baywatch.
Speedo? I'm just curious.
Don't you know it? No, guys like me, when you get hired for Baywatch, they go, could you do us a favor and just stay clothed? Could you do that? Because when you put us next to Hasselhoff,
Oh my
I mean,
God.
he's all tan and abbed up, and And who's little Tubby Casper over there? Anyway,
Scott, who was you asked me before Glenn hopped on if he worked with somebody. Who was that we were talking about?
Who was that?
Remember you said, didn't he work with his
Lawrence Welk?
Yes.
Thank you, boys.
Oh, very good. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you, boy.
And now the lovely living sisters.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, look this up and see. Wasn't he from one of the Dakotas?
Yeah, he was from North Dakota.
North Dakota.
I remember that because when I was a national FFA officer a million years ago, it was not unusual for like a farm broadcaster to meet you at the airport, to ask you a question that they would show on the farm report, right? The next morning, right? So I am getting off a plane in Bismarck and the camera comes on and I walk up to it and they go, yeah. It was one of the singers for Lawrence Welk. So I like walked up to the camera. They're like, who are you?
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Thank you, boys.
It was
Thank
Tom
you, boys.
somebody that was a singer with Lawrence Welk, but the third row singer from Lawrence Welk was big news that day. So,
I would love to do a little candid camera thing where we sit down a millennial in front of an episode of Lawrence Welk.
Oh my
and
God.
just film, say nothing, don't warn them what it's going to be about.
no.
Just say, we would like you to watch this, and just see if they are shocked. Are they stimulated? Do they find it to be pleasant? Is it annoying? Are they enraged?
Oh my God.
Are they in utter disbelief that once upon a time we found this entertaining? What
And
do
it was
you
on
think?
for years. I mean,
Yes.
I mean,
I
yeah.
So what do you guys
you know,
think would be the reaction? I'm curious. What
To a
what
millennial?
millennials would be? Yes. What would they do?
The millennials that come to mind for me are they would be enraged probably.
Look at this. Robert Brooker says, I used to watch Lawrence Welk and his orchestra Sunday evenings. Pickings were slim in the country.
Yeah. Right. Glenn, did you ever work with TK Carter?
No, I did not.
how long do you think the Lawrence Welk show was on?
Are you looking it up for us, Scott?
I just looked it up.
I'm
I knew it was
going
on Lawrence
to
Welk.
go with 7 years.
I'm going to go with 8 years.
About 31 years.
What?
Like I said, I meant to say 30 years.
So did I.
Wow.
I meant to say 31 actually.
Wow.
Is that
31
incredible?
years of Lawrence Welk.
And that's network. He was on locally in Los Angeles, and then ABC picked it up. The show remained on the air for 31 years.
Wow.
I think Eric Overly has it best sized up by saying their heads would explode.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you work with Archie Bunker?
No, Carol O'Connor.
Carol O'Connor. Yeah.
No, never did. I've stood at his grave and thanked him, though.
Wow.
I have stood at his grave and thanked him for his dance. By the way, this just in from gravesyou'llwannavisit.com. Go to Pierce Brothers for any of you that like to visit the well-known deceased. Go to Pierce Brothers in Westwood. It is the best kept secret cemetery to the stars. A lot of people think it's Forest Lawn, and indeed there are many well-known people buried at Forest Lawn. But the Pierce Brothers Cemetery is no more than, I'd say, 120 yards long, the whole cemetery. And it has Marilyn Monroe buried there. Don Knotts is buried there.
Wow.
Carol O'Connor, Sebastian Cabot. Remember that name?
Of course.
Do you boys remember Sebastian Cabot?
No.
How about this? Natalie Wood, Truman Capote, my hero, Jack Lemmon, obviously. Jack Klugman is buried there.
Wow.
Dean Martin is buried there. Anyway, if you look it up, it's
Eddie Albert. I see.
Oh, are you looking up the Pierce
I've got it
Brothers?
here.
Hey, Glenn,
Read us some of the names. I want you to hear this list of
The
impressive.
list is so long. You couldn't, but Eddie Albert is buried there.
Yeah.
Richard Anderson, talk about a great character actor. Remember from the $6 Million Man?
Oh, okay.
He was the voice that said, one of the Andrews sisters, Eve Arden, Jim Backus.
Jim Backus. I've stood at Jim Backus's. He was cremated, so his urn is down in the ground there.
Richard Basehart, Whit Bissell, Lloyd Bachner. There's, a lot of great. Ray Bradbury, the author.
Yes.
Fanny Bryce, that Barbara Streisand played in Funny Girl and Funny Lady. Les Brown and his Band of Renown.
Who?
Les Brown was the band leader, and it was Les Brown and his Band of Renown that used to play for Bob Hope everywhere. That's who did all the USO tours with him, and all that. Like you said,
Les Brown that I'm thinking of.
Sammy Kahn, the great songwriter, as you said, Truman Capote, John Cassavetes, James Coburn, Jackie Collins, Ray Conniff, Tim Conway, Bob Crane.
Wow.
Tim Conway was buried there. I need to go pay my respects.
Yeah. Rodney Dangerfield is buried there. Richard Dawson, Kirk Douglas, Will Durant, Dominic Dunn. Do you remember her? She was the girl in what was the movie? She's Dominic Dunn's daughter that was murdered.
I don't remember.
She's got, oh gosh, what was it's a Poltergeist. She was the older daughter in Poltergeist that was really, really terrific. Holy cow. Farrah Fawcett, Peter Falk.
Jeez.
Stan Freberg, both the Gabor sisters.
And the whole property is the equivalent of probably 4 homes, big homes, their yards laid side by side. You can tour all over it. You just park your car and go see them all. And I got to tell you, Ken, if you would put this up, I know we did it the other night, but I want to show people the most ornate grave I've ever seen, which is Don Knotts. Don Knotts' grave is so beautiful because of the artistry on the headstone, which is him in many different roles.
Yeah.
The primary one being Barney Fife in the Andy Griffith Show. But I think it's nice to go and visit and just have a moment and pay respects.
Can I get a couple more real quick? Jack Lemmon is buried there. Burt Lancaster is there. Brian Keith is there. A recent
addition next to Brian Keith. Doris Roberts.
Oh, no kidding.
Doris Roberts is buried there.
Hugh Hefner.
Wow.
And Florence Henderson.
And Hugh Hefner is buried right next to
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe, correct.
Yeah.
In the wall there.
How cool.
So look at this headstone. Now let's test everybody and see if you can figure out what role is which one. So you've got Barney up there, and then to his right, you have the reluctant astronaut.
Yeah. The incredible Mr. Limpet.
Mr. Limpet would be in the upper left. Mr. Furley from Three's Company would be in the lower right. And then
I don't know who's above his head, though.
I think that might be him from the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Oh, I bet you're right. Yes.
With Tim Conway that he did. And then the last one there.
Wow.
Any guesses on that one, Scott?
No.
If anybody can guess that one.
I don't know that one.
One of you fellas read that right there.
Go ahead, Scott.
It's so true. He saw the poignancy in people's pride and pain and turned it into something hilarious and endearing. Boy, what a great epitaph.
That's pretty powerful, huh?
I don't know why the shot there with the baseball stadium. I don't know that one. Maybe did he love baseball and golf? Is that why
the Ghost and Mr. Chicken?
And Mr. Chicken? Oh,
Yeah, I never saw that movie. Thank you, Eric, for that
That's
insight.
a great one, Eric. Oh, that is so good.
So, and that's flat on the ground, by the way, guys.
I'll be darned.
It's
Wow.
not standing up. That is what's flat on the ground.
Wow.
That is
So I encourage, if you're ever out there, it is very hidden. It's right in the heart of Westwood. You go down Wilshire Boulevard and turn south on Glendon, and that's the entrance. And it's really something very interesting to do when you're in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So what's on everybody's mind tonight with our family, our extended family?
Yeah. What's
I just
happening?
got-
in
I read
everybody's
this. I noticed a post about visiting a grave. I was reading this morning. There's a story on The Athletic about the first NFL team in Dallas that was called the Dallas
Texans, who became the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and went. They didn't make it in Dallas, and part of the reason they said they didn't make it in Dallas is that the owner was very progressive.
Clint Murchison.
It was not segregated, and it was and all of that. But they said the opening kickoff of the Dallas Texans was to the New York. The Jets, but it was something different that's not being used. And the opening kickoff was fumbled, and Dallas recovered it. And the player that fumbled for the New York team was named Tom Landry.
Oh, wow.
On the opening kickoff of Dallas's first, and I'd never read that before.
Wild
Is that
trivia.
crazy? Is that incredible?
Wow.
I can't believe I don't know that.
I never read it before. I never read it before. But
And
that's-
whenever
Dallas
the first
has a football team?
easy there, Steeler fan.
now we gloat, yes, but
Yeah, he'd be, if they were losing, he'd be as quiet as little church mouse peeing on cotton.
isn't there some verse that says pride goes before the fall? I'm not certain, but
It seems
I'm
like
not-
we've heard that
I
somewhere.
haven't seen a single minute of a game this year, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I
and
just found out
clearly-
that Dallas has a
Clearly,
football.
the Steelers are missing your support.
I
You
know.
should
I'm
should
afraid to watch
boycott more
now.
often, Ken.
yeah, no
I know,
kidding.
right?
The Roonies are sending you a check. Please
I know.
stay away. How much does it take for you to not go?
Don't
Yeah.
you love that, guys?
Throughout
Ken
the
boycotts
playoffs.
them and they go 10-0.
I know, it's insane. Crazy.
You know, would it be wrong for me to ask you to boycott my life?
Oh, wow. Wow. Nope. See,
Well, now that we've got a good show going, for
Hey,
you,
we're finally here, Scotto. You know what? Here's what we need to do. We need to plan a trip, Vegas, and at the last minute, Ken will boycott it and we will win a fortune.
exactly.
He'll be back. He's just playing.
Blackjack dealer be going, you guys. You guys are out of here. Hey, Sandy asked a great question. If you had to choose the best movies of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that's a great question.
Best movies of the
Of those
50s,
decades.
60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I like what-
wow.
I like what Gary says. Scott, if the Steelers keep winning because you're boycotting, I think you mean Ken, because
Yeah.
if boycotting worked, I'd boycott the Colts. But it's
I think it does work. I'm not gonna lie. Have you ever watched a game and thought, man, the last time I didn't see them play the last time I watched this game and they're getting their asses kicked. Maybe I shouldn't watch them.
Right. Well, this just in, Ken, Terry Bradshaw is no longer the quarterback. I just want to let
Oh
you know.
my! Since when?
And the steel curtain, they're not there anymore either.
Right.
I hate to admit it, but like if I'm watching a game and like I go upstairs and turn the game on, because I'm doing something and then I'm going to go back down. But if they like score and look really good when I'm upstairs, I'll stay upstairs.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, that's-
I won't
I
leave
understand.
I won't leave my lucky spot.
I think isn't that called sports OCD?
Yes, it is. It
Like
is
you'd-
superstition beyond.
It's not unlike gentlemen. We were boys and we were growing up, and someone would ask us to go hold the antenna. and then ask us to stay there.
Yeah.
Like, it's just perfect. The reception is great. And you're there like a schmuck with your arm like this, and the family is prepared for you to do that for like 90 minutes.
Dude, we had one of those. Do you remember those triangular TV towers, like that they would put out next to the house, and the big antennas up on top of it?
Yeah.
And you had the little motor thing, the little
Well,
dials.
no, rich people had the little motor thing.
Rich people.
Poor people had kids, and they'd go outside and turn it. I think you need to turn it, point it towards Dayton. I was like,
Right.
really? Like, and go, I'll bang on the wall once it's in, and you're out there freezing your ass off. Did we get the signal yet? It's like, oh my God.
Don't move. Stay out there.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I have never heard in my life the expression "point it toward Dayton." That's the first time I've ever heard that. Oh my gosh! Hello, Daryl Goldberg.
People say west.
What's that?
If he's in Columbus, wouldn't most people say west?
No, we
Right.
didn't live in Columbus. We lived in Northwest Ohio. So it was kind of, Dayton was from Indian Lake, Ohio, is almost directly south. So, but yeah, we picked up channels out of Dayton, Ohio, Lima, Ohio, and on a really cloudy day, we could get a signal out of Columbus.
That was us
This
in
little trip
Crothersville.
down memory lane is
Yeah.
really bringing a warm smile to your face. again.
I'll never forget when they announced cable television. We were just freaking couldn't believe it. Like, we were going to get 7 stations instead of 3 if we were lucky 3. It was crazy. I'll
No,
never
we were
forget
lucky
that.
because we got both Indianapolis and Louisville. You
Oh, did you?
where we lived, and then there was a station in Bloomington, Indiana. It was one of the first of the independent stations. So
Were you sort of
naturally,
right there between
wrestling.
the 3?
I'm sorry.
Were you sort of camped out there right between the 3 towns?
Yeah. So you couldn't get the ABC affiliate out of Indy, but you could get NBC, CBS out of Indy. There was an independent station in Bloomington, and then you could get ABC, CBS, NBC out of Louisville. So let me tell you, it was a crazy time because on the CBS affiliate in Indianapolis, the noon anchor was Jane Pauley. On the NBC affiliate, the weather person was David Letterman.
Right.
Diane Sawyer did the weather in Louisville. It was just an incredible time.
We only had one local dude become a very well-known national sportscaster. We have 2 that are from here, but one of them did the local news here. Any guesses, trivia fellows?
Well, Dan Rather has to be one of them.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Dan
I was
Rather
reading
is out of
comments.
the Houston market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
Because I remember
actually-
him being in Dallas at the assassination, so that's why.
Yes, Dan Rather, I believe, was from a suburb of Houston, a little area called Madisonville. And I know because he dated my stepmom at one point in time, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
But we had a sportscaster on Channel 8 local news, the ABC affiliate, WFAA, by the name of Vern Lundquist.
Vern Lundquist. Wow.
You remember Vern? And he's still around,
One of the greats.
And, but of course, my all-time favorite, who is buried not far from here, Pat Summerall.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Pat
tell you what.
Summerall is buried probably about 12 miles from here.
Dude, read that comment that's up on the screen. Not to interrupt, but read that. That's insane.
Go ahead, Scott.
Ceausescu speaking. Oh, my gosh.
Wow. That's
That's-
it.
Okay, well, thank you for that
Jeez.
deepened understanding of how spoiled we are in this country.
Like, seriously.
But I certainly remember, like you guys, when we were a 3-station country, and then you had, the sponsored station. You had sort of the PBS
Yeah.
station, but you had ABC, NBC, and CBS, and that was it. And
if the
Fox didn't come
president-
along
if
for
the
years.
President came on during prime time, which happened way too often, from what I recall. there was nothing else to watch. That's all you could watch was the president.
And
That's
and
it.
how about this one? Do you know how many young folks today wouldn't even know that there was a thing called the sign off?
Yeah.
Where we watched the Pledge of Allegiance, we watched the Star Spangled Banner be played, and
Yep.
we'd see the flags and the planes go over, and then it was like, adios,
Yeah.
we're off the air now. And so there were hours where there was nothing
Hours.
because we had heard the sign off, and then we saw that pattern.
The
Yep.
Remember
test
that pattern that was on the
Daryl just
screen?
said it. Yeah.
The test pattern, and I
Yeah.
believe, wasn't there an American Indian
Yep.
that was pictured in the test pattern? Am I
Yeah.
wrong, or is that
No, you're
Oh,
exactly
you're
right.
right.
God? These
And
are-
the
God, could you do that for like at least 60 more seconds? It was a trip down memory lane for me, Ken, and not even slightly annoying, by the way.
that was so annoying.
Well, in
But,
my
you
old
know-
days in radio, we used to call it. You had mornings was called the sign-on shift, and if you worked late, it was
Oh,
the
wow.
sign-off shift.
Yeah.
And in Seymour, Indiana, well, in Columbus, Indiana as well, but in Seymour, Indiana, I worked for what was called an AM daytimer. Now, there are clear channel stations. You've heard of clear channel, like, there's the WLS Chicago is clear channel, WHS. But what that means is on that frequency, they are the only one broadcasting. It's
Right.
cleared out for that channel. Well, we were 1390 WJCD, and there was some station somewhere that had 13. So we had to sign off at sundown. So it meant that in the summer, if you worked the sign off shift, you were working until 8 o'clock on the air. But in December, we signed off at 5:15. Signed off for the day at 5:15, which also meant during
Wow.
Christmas, when everybody's buying advertising, we were all spots all the time. It was
So let me
Oh
ask
my
you.
God.
Let me ask you this: I've always been a night owl, so I saw many sign-offs. I stood
Yeah.
at attention to many Star Spangled Banner playings before we saw the test pattern. But when TV went live for the day,
Yeah.
did they just begin programming, or did we have a song that was patriotic? How did they start the day's broadcasting? Was it just all of a sudden, good morning, and here's the news? What did they do?
for many stations,
Oh, no.
they would still play. Now, this was in the old days in radio. They would still play the national anthem
To
at 6
open the
a.m.,
day.
right? To open the day.
Wow.
Wow.
But now, and some stations still do that to this day, but after radio got screwed up because they were allowed to own as many stations as you could buy, and it became more of a corporate gig, there's no national anthem, there's no reset for the day, there's no any of that. And I think that's that. Well, my late wife's best friend, her husband is a nationally syndicated radio broadcaster. And I was telling him one time, it's a guy named Tom Griswold of Bob and Tom. It's on over 100 markets across the country.
I've heard it.
And I said to Tom, I said, man, I just admire what you do so much. I miss radio. And he said, no, you miss the radio that was when you worked in it.
Right.
You would not, it's changed so much. You would not
Mm.
miss it today. And I hear that constantly from people that have stayed in broadcasting, that it has changed so much. Well, I got off a plane, Glenn, this is before we met, but I got off a plane a while back in Dallas and got my rental car and turned the radio on, and a gal that I know from Indianapolis was on. One of the stations just happened to be in it. And so
Wow.
I sent her a text and I said, hey, I didn't know you're in Dallas. She said, oh no, I'm in Indianapolis. That's just voice tracked. So-
That's almost a Delilah moment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and
Wow.
that's what it is. It's voice. I mean, there were people, for example, to do overnights in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. I mean, that would have been a lifetime goal for a lot of broadcasters.
Yeah.
Now it's syndicated. To do mornings in Cincinnati would have been a lifetime goal for many broadcasters. Well, now Bob and Tom, are number one in Indianapolis and Dayton and Cincinnati and Columbus and St. Louis and on and on and on.
What was the
it's
guy
crazy.
from wasn't he from WLW, right? Earl Pitts? Or
Gary Burbank. Yeah, I
yeah,
knew
Gary
Gary.
Burbank, yeah.
Yeah,
We
we're
talked
friends
about
on Facebook, but I haven't seen him or talked to him for a long time. But Gary syndicated Earl Pitts, you know, and
You know what makes me mad, America?
Gary's so great. Didn't I tell you guys the story of Gary's last day on the air in
Oh
Louisville?
yeah, that's right.
Tell
You
it,
Where
tell
he
it
was
again.
supposedly assassinated, and the guy that's taken over, oh, Gary, oh, no, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I'm doing
tell-
afternoon drive. Hey, good evening, everybody. The coldest line I ever heard was from a broadcaster. Because one of the things in radio that you would do, because particularly at small town stations, is you'd have what's called a trade out. So, for example, like I got to go to the drive-in movie for free because I would plug the drive-in on my show, and they gave me a pass, so I could get in the drive-in, get all my concessions for free.
Moving up in the world,
Because
brother.
I was doing that. I got gas for free, because of a gas station that we reduced the price of commercials. So everybody that worked there got gas. So I called one of my friends back home in Southern Indiana. And I said, hey man, whatever happened to the name of the guy that ran the station? He said he couldn't find a cardiologist to do a bypass on trade.
Oh, oh my god! Oh,
It's the coldest line.
What
my
an indirect way to answer your question as to
Oh.
him not even being alive anymore.
oh
He
my!
couldn't find a cardiologist to do trade. Oh, that's a
Oh.
beautiful
Isn't that
line. I mean, it is so irreverent, but it's
Yeah.
still
It's
funny.
so irreverent. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, remember
It's off, yeah.
Pits off. Oh my god.
So something I have about weather, guys, and Scott, you have a stronger background than Ken and I both do in that whole world. But these egomaniacal weather people who seem to have a personal relationship with the with Mother Nature, and they actually talk about what they are going to do. I find this highly entertaining. I think it would make for a great thing to edit. How, we're going to push that front out of here on Monday. Hey, newsflash, you personally are not going to do jack squat. What is it? Jack squat. Right. And you hear them talking about, we're going to bring that cold front in and we're going to ship that out and bring in you're not going to do anything except tell us what the weather will be. But they seem to move to playing a primary role as though they are taking on the character of Mother Nature themselves. You have any thoughts about that? Because I think some of it is just outrageous.
You've hit on a hot button for me, because the two
Good.
things
Talk about
as
it.
a fan, I think it's okay. But my other hot button is the sportscaster that says, hey, tomorrow night we're playing really? You're going to be on the court.
You're going to be suited up and padded up.
With
Right.
the team. Yeah. I mean, for fans and the teams want us to identify. So for a Steelers fan to say, hey man, we got a tough game next week. That's one thing. But for the sportscaster to say, and next week we'll be fighting those,
Right.
And the thing with the weather, and it's, you hit the nail on the head. It's ego. It is the sense that, I'm so important because I'm doing the weather in Topeka that I'm going to tell you, you're going to plant the crops based on what I'm saying, that we're going to move this field. It's
and I you guys know I used to drink a lot, and when I was in it doesn't matter where I was in a major market where I ended up on I think I told this story before. I played on a men's league baseball team, and these were all like semi-pro and college, like that hadn't gone pro yet, and we're just a bunch of I was friends with the NBC anchor man. We were really good buds, and he's like, hey, you want to play on our baseball team? And I'm like, sure. I mean, how hard could it be with a bunch of freaking reporters? And so I'm the only guy that's not in the TV media, and these guys You want to talk about egos, and,
Oh.
and look, most of them couldn't pour piss out of a boot if the instructions were on the
heel.
I mean, they couldn't. But yet they were. I mean, it was unbelievable. The weatherman, I hated him. Like I told him, I'm like, you're the highest paid liar I've ever met in my life. Like you don't get anything right, and you're gonna complain about the way people are playing baseball. Get out of here with that crap. Those guys are crazy. Sorry, but anyway, they're egomaniacs. Scott said something about that. It just triggered me. God, they're egomaniacs.
You know, when I was in broadcasting, to be fair, when I was in broadcasting, some of the greatest, nicest people I have ever, they're still friends. I mean, you know, you guys know from the Distinction Summit we did, Sage Steele at ESPN is one of my best friends. She is just an extraordinary human being. She is the nicest, greatest. Other buddies, Jim Mitchell was an anchor a long time in Louisville, then became a professor at the law school at University of Arizona. Just so smart, such depth. And then there were others that I knew that they would go out and cover a story that they did not understand. And they would come back, and I was just a freelancer, you know, but they knew, you know, that I knew a little something. And so they would ask me to explain to them the story that they had just gone out to cover. And it just, you know, that makes me see, and I'm going to say something controversial. You ready?
Hey,
Do it.
The media is not as liberal as what we think it is, but reporters are.
Mm.
When I worked in Indianapolis television,
I think that's an accurate observation, Scott.
Yeah.
When I worked in Indianapolis television, usually somebody that was working there, it was probably on average, it was their third stop along the way.
In their evolving path.
Yes. So the way you get more money, there's two ways you make more money in television news. Either you get promoted, you know, you go from being a reporter to an anchor, because anchors make more money than reporters. Typically, I'm speaking with a very broad brush here, but
Yeah.
So you get promoted to being an anchor, or you move to a bigger market.
Yep.
And there's market size. So like if you're in a top 100 market, then you want to get to a top 50 market, then a top 25 market, then a top 5 or 10. Okay. So Indianapolis, at the time I was working there, was a top 25 market. So that was kind of a big deal for me to go from Louisville, which was 50, to 25.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you get to a top 25 market, you've probably been at Paducah, you know, and then you go, if you're in my part of the country, then you would go to Fort Wayne.
Right.
And then you would make it to Indianapolis. And for a lot of folks from Indy, the goal was to get to Chicago. Well, you know, I mean, that's what Jane Pauley did. You know, that's what other people, Leah Hope, others that became big names in Chicago news. Well, anyway, that I worked with. Anyway, so one of the really frustrating things about it is that it was their third stop. And in today's money, they were probably, when they were first hired, making $40,000 a year.
Yep.
When Sage Steele first got hired, and we talked about this during the Distinction Summit, when Sage Steele got hired to be a sports reporter at the CBS affiliate, then in Indianapolis, and to do the morning weekends with me, she also had to be a waitress in a restaurant to make ends meet.
Yep.
So the people, and again, I'm painting with a very broad brush, but many of the people that I was around, and the ones that are still friends are the ones that weren't that way. But many of the people who I were around then, they wanted to be famous more than they wanted to be journalists.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make any money. None of them.
It was, or they came in to be crusaders, not to be reporters.
Right.
And many of them, you know, couldn't see. I'll give you one example. In Louisville, the city opened up a performing center for the arts, which is great, wonderful. And I wanted to go do a story about, well, what happens to the other theaters that are independently owned, whose competition now becomes the government-funded facility? How are they going to respond to that? And the person that was the assignment editor at that time couldn't figure out why anybody would have any other viewpoint than this is a wonderful thing. Well, I'm saying if you own a theater and all of a sudden the government opens up a theater and they're going to bring in bigger acts than you've got, and what happens to these people that have invested their sweat and tears and years? And I just like to know what they think. Does the rising tide lift all boats, or is it going to put them out of business, or what? And it was just, it's amazing how people can only see, the blinders that are on.
Yep. I think, you just like, I had a business where, we were a very large home security company. We installed security systems in people's homes. And I was drinking with my buddy, the anchor man. and I said, dude, you need to do a piece on me for my company, man. And he's like, what kind of a piece would I do? I go, I don't know, do a piece on all the burglaries happening across the city. And he's like, that's a great idea. So this reporter shows up at my office. He calls me, hey, I'm going to send this girl out. And I'm sorry. Please, if you're a reporter watching this and I'm like, this isn't directed at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reporters.
Yes, absolutely.
But only the ones that I've met. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So she shows up to do this piece, and I mean, the Don Henley song, "Dirty Laundry,"
the bubble-headed bleach blonde.
I mean, she was. I mean, literally couldn't pour piss out of a boot. If I went like that and held like here, the instructions for this are down here on the heel. Just flip it over. Oh my God. Anyway, it just but that's also an example of how these backroom deals are done, because all it takes is the anchor man going, hey, we're going to do a report tonight on burglaries across the city, and we got this company we're going to interview that has a solution, and bam, all of a sudden it just like my phones didn't stop ringing.
Well, and one of the things that has changed since then is that the anchor person doesn't have that much power anymore. That the edict comes down from Sinclair Broadcasting or Meredith or whatever. And so there's not that in both radio and television, they are taking the local out of local news and local broadcasting.
It's not journalism. It's definitely not journalism anymore.
Well, and that's in part, that's how I got a decade as a movie reviewer. It was easier to pick up my package that was going out than it was to hire your own movie reviewer in that particular town. We shot my movie reviews like I was local, the things that I would do, and I would shoot different things. And so, and I'll never forget, I was living in Indianapolis, and I was on every week on the Friday 11 o'clock news here in Vegas. This before I moved here or anything like that. And there were tons of people coming up to me. Vegas was playing in the Final Four of the NCAA basketball championship, the Running Rebels. And people used to come up and go, oh man, good to see you here. Glad you're covering this, or you're going to review it because they thought I was local. And it's just like, it's just like my friend that's, on the air in Dallas, that's just reading intros and weather, she's got like what pre-recorded weather reports. And that's what, yeah.
Hey, by the way, now that we're on that single of Scott looks great tonight, doesn't he?
He does.
He looks the best he's looked since we started this show. I'm not joking.
You're too kind.
You look exceptionally handsome tonight. Probably going to be a big fan mail week for you. By the way,
you're just setting it up so the next week you can go, holy crap, Scott, what happened?
what happened?
Is that the same Sinclair? Probably. Sinclair is a huge company.
Sinclair is still
Sinclair
around.
Broadcasting is not the same as Sinclair gas stations.
Oh,
but
No,
it's,
the TV's on the gas pumps.
yeah, no, it's not the same. But Sinclair Broadcasting Group is one of the biggies, and they are very conservative. They're kind of like and I know some folks are starting to have problems with Fox, but they are the conservative. I mean, they espouse a conservative viewpoint. And I mean,
Right.
there's the station I work for in Louisville, for example, was owned by the Bingham family, and they owned the Courier-Journal. So they owned the newspaper and what was at that time, it's now the ABC affiliate, but it was a CBS affiliate when I worked there. I worked there when we changed affiliates, and they had a commitment to journalism, and they would never, ever, they didn't want to be asked about the only story that the owner ever interfered with was the son, who was the heir to the family, and everybody knew, he was was arrested for drunk driving, and they demanded that it be put on the front page of the paper and be one of the lead stories, because they said it is inappropriate for us to air stories about other people's problems and
without looking at ourselves,
at our own and at ourselves. And that was the only time that I ever remember in 4 years there that they ever said anything about where a story should be or how it should be covered.
So that was a fairly conservative group.
They were very liberal. In fact,
they
were
were
one of the leading Democratic families in Kentucky. They were very, very supportive of Democratic causes personally, but they always made certain, and a lot of people talked about the Courier-Journal being a liberal newspaper. Well, it was on the opinion page, but they were always very careful to separate what was, and I think that's one of the things that's gone wrong now, is that there are certain things that, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but if that Jake Tapper says on CNN, or that, somebody might say on one of the others, that's clearly commentary, but it's not labeled as such.
Right.
And I think
they used to label that.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things too, is that, we know that if you're at MSNBC, you are supposed to have a liberal outlook on how you report the news. If you work at Fox, you could generally say that you have a conservative way that you approach the news.
Mm-hmm.
Used to.
That ain't news. If I can say, because how did Walter Cronkite vote when he was on the air? I have no idea. How did David Brinkley vote? I have no idea. And I don't mean to sound like my dad walking to school, in the snow, uphill both directions kind of thing. But boy, I miss those days when the journalist reported facts and kind of left it up to the audience to decide.
Right. And there was a classiness to it as well. There was an even more liberal station in Nevada, Scott. It wasn't owned by the Bingham family. I think it was owned by the Bangham family. Just saying. I would like to introduce a phrase. I'd like to introduce a phrase tonight, a name for going back. If we can kind of walk back a couple of things that we've moved away from without finishing them up. And that is, I wrote this down. I want to introduce the egomaniacal weathermen. I want to call them I want to call this condition meteorological megalomania. I just like the way that sounds, meteorological megalomania. By the way, you were talking about money and the $40,000 a year. I have never advertised this publicly, but I'm 61 years old and I feel the urge to share with the world what my salary was on my very first movie on Drive-In. And I was paid weekly. And my salary, courtesy of Columbia Pictures, which to me was a fortune, and a wonderful alternative to a paper route. And it was $604 a week.
Jeez. And
19
you were 16?
$604 a week in 1975. And here was my reaction. Whoo, come on with it.
Dude, that's a lot of money back then.
Do you know a 16-year-old in 1975 is making $604 a week?
I was,
And-
but I'm not going to talk
And
about
you
that.
know, it took us 6 weeks to do the film. So I'm sitting here at $3,600 in my bank account, and I was on my way and loving it and thinking, what a great way to make a living. You know,
No.
I didn't have any bills because I was under my parents' roof. But yeah, that was my salary for driving, $604 a week,
Wow, dude.
which
That's
was the Screen Actors Guild minimum salary.
Wow.
That's what they
That's
had to
So
pay
you
me.
got your SAG card though from your first.
I did. And
Oh,
you
that's
and the point is you can't command a salary. You can't command because you don't have a resume.
Yeah.
You're the lead in the movie, but you can't say, well, based on all these movies I've
Yeah.
never done. You
Scott,
know,
do you have a SAG card?
I do not. I wish I did.
Well, you did a movie though, wasn't that?
It wasn't. It was a German film. It wasn't union.
Oh.
we loved when we played that clip. That was so beautiful of you to share that with us.
So how,
I got-
how does that
I got paid in cash.
Oh,
Did you really?
I really did.
You really
And
did?
I
Oh,
was
that's
scared.
funny.
I flew to Wisconsin, and I think I've told you, but I'll never forget. I was driving to the Indianapolis airport. I was in Franklin College, and there were 3 different times there were commercials from this new horror movie coming out called Snuff. And the premise of the movie is it was a snuff film
Yes.
where they actually murder somebody
Yes.
on the screen.
On camera.
Yeah, you know.
Wow.
And here I am, and I get to the airport, and I fly Northwest, or I'm sorry, Republic Airlines. It became Northwest, and they said there'd be a ticket waiting on you, and it was one way.
Oh, jeez.
Now later I found out because they didn't know how long I was going to be needed,
Oh,
you
my
know. So they
gosh.
just go buy 2 one-way tickets. But I can turn out, I'm like, they're going to kill me.
That's
Anyway.
funny.
You know,
What's Cynthia Mannion says? What's that mean?
SAG-AFTRA, 2 unions that merged together. AFTRA stands for the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists.
Wow.
So
Median
SAG and AFTRA
income
merged.
In 1974 was 230. That was for an adult. You were a child.
Right. So I was making $604 a week at age 16, which is
4 times more than the average median household in or income in America.
we may need to send you back to math class.
In 1980, I went to work.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 times. Almost 3 times. Yeah.
In 1980, I
Okay.
went to work for the college that I graduated from, Franklin College, and they were offering me the job to be director of public affairs and annual funds. So I was in charge of raising cash gifts and being the PR guy for the college. And they offered me $12,000 a year. And
Wow.
honestly, my first thought was, how will I ever spend $1,000 a month?
You know, it's so beautiful.
I thought I was rich.
Absolutely.
$1,000.
And do you know that anytime I start thinking of 604 a week, when I start thinking of that as a not so good a salary, all I do is stop and think about all the money that I've made on this program.
Yes.
And
And that $1,000 a month's looking real good.
$604 a week feels like a friggin' fortune.
Fortune.
Yeah, it is.
Hey,
Wow.
do you remember George Carlin's routine of wino radio? I want to share this with you guys because I used to do this as a teenager, but he had a boss. There was a guy on the air and his name was Scott Lame. I think I've done it for you before, but it'll be a trip down memory lane since I had the pleasure of knowing George Carlin. And I got a chance to do this for George in front of him, just one-on-one, nobody else there. But hi, gang, Scott Lame here, the boss jock with a boss sounds from the boss list with the boss hits that my boss told me to play right here from the nifty 850 Wonderful Wino Radio. Wonderful Wino, the big sound in the big town. Wino time. Bing bong, 5 minutes past the bigger hour, 5 o'clock. There we go. Wonderful Wino Radio.
It's so
Wow.
good.
Yeah, it's been a part of me since I was like 14.
Look,
You know?
Jeffrey Wolf says that your career has gone full circle.
Right, exactly.
The first radio job I had was in Scottsburg, Indiana at WMPI. Literally, Wimpy Radio.
Wimpy. Can you give us the call?
WMPI, 100.9. And we were in. So what happened was there's this guy from Tennessee that would buy up these. He would find places that had frequencies. Like the FAA has assigned frequencies to communities. So like Scottsburg, Indiana had a frequency that had been assigned, but no radio station. Well, so what he would do is to find somebody in that community, and they'd do like an 80-20 deal. And that way he could buy a radio station for a small amount of money. So in Scottsburg, Indiana, he found the farmer that owned the pasture that had the biggest, tallest hill in the county. So your antenna could be 300 feet above ground, not above sea level, but above ground. So having the tallest hill meant your tower was higher. And so to save money, they put a house trailer, a mobile home under the tower in the cow pasture.
Oh,
wow. And that was our studio. So I would turn them, and you can imagine the perfect sound insulation in a 1970s mobile home. And you would literally hear cows mooing in the background when I would turn it on and say, George Jones with our next song on Wimpy Radio. But the worst part was, back then you had teletypes, right? That's how the news came over, was teletypes.
Yeah.
And you'd have a teletype in the room, and the teletype would print out. We were on the Associated Press teletype, and it would print out. So that's where the term rip and read news came from. You'd go back and you'd rip it off the teletype paper, and then you'd sit down and just read whatever was there. They would send a news summary, and you would read what's over there. Well, one night, but if bells went off, it meant something was happening. So one night, and I'm by myself. I'm 15, 16 years old, sitting in this house trailer underneath this 300-foot electric tower on the top of the hill. and the bells start going off. And so I've got a song on. I run back. I rip the song off, or rip the bulletin off, and I come back and I plop down, and it's a bulletin for immediate read. I throw it on, and it's a tornado alert for the following counties. And Scott County, that county was one of the ones under alert. And it said, get out of mobile homes. Wait a minute. I'm in a mobile home underneath a 300-foot tower.
They didn't understand that meant abandon your radio station at this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
my God.
I love these stories.
What did you do?
Oh, I had to stay on the air. If I didn't get my minimum wage. So I'm staying there reporting the news to
back in those days. Scott, are you the voice and the technician?
So you're everything.
Are you actually putting a needle to a vinyl?
Oh yeah. It was called queuing up a record. You put the needle on, you would pull the thing down. So you'd have speakers up here, which is what's going over the air. Then you had a speaker underneath, and that's where the turntables and the cart machines were. So you got a speaker under there. So that was what was called the Q speaker. You would put one of the channels in Q,
right,
put a needle on the record, and then turn it to get to the first note, and then back it up. So that
you could hear it with the headphones, right?
Huh?
You could hear it with the headphones where it starts.
Well, typically you wouldn't have the headphones there. The headphones is what was going on over the air.
Oh, okay.
The Q, you would take your headphones off and listen to that speaker that was under the thing. So you'd turn till the first note, and then you'd back it up, and you'd do that a couple times just to make sure. So when you hit the button and started the turntable, that's when
right into the sound
of the song. But I worked the sign-off shift, so I got more money if literally I got an extra $10 a week if I took out the trash. So
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
So I bundle
Wow.
everything up and I'm trying to get out of there. I want to get out on time. So I put on a long song.
Let me guess. Iron Butterflies Inagata Davida.
Well, no,
That was my trash
unfortunately,
run out song.
We were not a rock station. But I put on a long song. Oh gosh, Donnie Harden. Yes, that was my boss. Lowell LL remembers that. I got a story about him. So anyway, so I take the trash out and I come back in and the record is going and I
Oh no.
Oh no! So
So
you
the
had
record had been
a
stuck.
record scratch that was
Yeah, because
playing live.
I thought nobody would know. You know, I'll start this long song. I'll run the trash out so that way I won't have to do it after and the record stuck and they were not happy about that.
Wow. How did wow. Where did
No,
you
I
take the track?
was on radio long before Wolfman Jack got to be Wolfman Jack. But I did hear I always thought it was funny because Wolfman Jack really got famous working out of a radio station in Del Rio, Texas. That was the first one that he worked, where every time they said Del Rio, they spelled it. Did you ever notice that? Did you ever hear that, Glenn?
No.
Some XERF in Del Rio, DELRIO, Del Rio, Texas. And they do they would sell like infomercial stuff.
Del Rio.
DELRIO, Del Rio, Texas. But
And then you have the sound of gunfire going on in the background.
Donnie Harden, that LL Lowry just mentioned, was my boss. I worked for 5 general managers in 6 years. But he was the best. He came up from Bruton in Evergreen, Alabama. And if Hollywood typecast, and I mean this in all love and respect, a South Alabama redneck, this was the guy.
Yeah.
He was about 6'3", and his gut stuck out there, and he was larger than life, and he called everybody cuz. And so we were doing New Year's Eve. And we were going to stay on late New Year's Eve and bring in the new year. And in those days, the disc jockey also did all the meter readings for the transmitter, and you had to keep the logs. And I had to go pass a test to get licensed, to do this at age 15, to sign it. And there's all kinds of notices that, if anything happened on the air, that whoever had signed the log was responsible. And, there were certain things that were punishable by 5 years in jail or a $50,000 fine. And all this kind of stuff. So the reason I was on the air on New Year's Eve is because Donnie decided there would be a station party. And I was the one that was, because I was 15, 16, couldn't drink. So naturally, I could be on the air.
Oh, geez.
So they've got this party going on at the station, and the studio had a window, so I can see everybody, people from town getting drunk, getting hammered, and phone rings, and Donnie gets on the phone, and I could tell something awful had happened because he was just gregarious. And he hangs up the phone, and he comes back and he says, "Hey, Scotty, let me in there for a minute." He's the boss. What am I going to do? So I get up, he sits down, he takes the needle of the record, and he goes, it just drags it across the record. And he said, "My wife just called me and said somebody hit my dog. They ran over my dog. Now my dog is going to be okay, but you SOB, you didn't stop." And he said, "If I find out who it is, I will effing kill you."
Oh my God.
And said the word.
Oh.
And he said, "And I mean it." "Okay, take it away, Scotty. Back to you."
Oh my God.
Now I'm thinking, 5 years in jail, $50,000 fine. So I just started a song, and I'm sitting there shell shocked, and the phones explode. We had like 8 lines. Every line starts flashing. I'm thinking, oh my, what am I going to say? Oh my God. We're a country station. It's about 1 a.m. Who's listening to country music on New Year's Eve at 1 o'clock? Other drunks. Everyone was, "You tell him if I find him, I'll kick his ass till Donnie can come kill him." Every call.
And that's just the way it is, cuz.
"The man won't stop when he hits a dog, needs killing. You tell Donnie I said that." There wasn't a single complaint
Oh my God.
Everybody was. It was
You know, you've just hit on the number one defense for murder in the state of Texas is, well, Your Honor, he needed killing.
he needed killing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how they
He had
explain.
it coming. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
how they explain homicide.
Your
here in
ratings
Texas.
went up instantly. Wow.
Oh my God, Scott! What a pleasure to listen to all these stories, bud.
Yeah.
every old time broadcaster's got a million war
Wow.
stories. But when you worked with Donnie Harden, as L.L. Lowry mentioned, you certainly have more than your share.
I just remembered someone that came out of this market on the radio that wound up becoming nationally known. And we used to listen to his local talk show, and we used to do radio pranks, phone pranks to the radio station. That was really big in the 60s when we were kids, but it was a guy by the name of Rod Roddy on KLIF.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And Rod Roddy went on to be the announcer for Bob Barker.
Yeah.
Right, on The Price is Right. This is Rod Roddy, and we used to listen to Rod Roddy as kids here in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, which is kind of fun.
And Glenn, you would know more than I about this, but I've heard that game shows is one of the cash cows. If you can be a game show host or a game show announcer, because you work a few days a month, but yet you make really great money on it.
Well, and I think Drew Carey is the answer to that question. It's a testimony to it that, Drew had a lovely career, and all of a sudden they give him The Price is Right. You didn't see Drew doing a lot of other things. And the reason is Drew didn't need to do a lot of other things. He just go knock off several episodes of that in a week and call it good and relax. So supposedly a very good gig. And, I'm just grateful that show business, what was the old saying, is been very good to me, right? What was that from? Something
baseball been very,
baseball's been very good to me. So show business has been very good to me. I cannot complain. I've been at it a really, really long time.
After the hour, which is the time that every week we always stop and play our favorite game. Ooh, that's just wrong.
That's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
I'm sure we've collected a few of them during these holiday times.
I have nothing.
Mine actually occurred a few weeks ago in LA. Let me see the sign for it again, Ken. Nothing. Show us what nothing looks like.
I know. I'm
Wasn't it? I had someone in Los Angeles that was preparing a meal for me and some other people, and I saw them actually work on it with their hands, followed by, and then work on it some more.
Oh.
And suck their fingers clean like we don't have a virus going on. And then with those fingers went ahead and served me, and I did not volunteer to eat it.
Did you say something?
I didn't know what. That's one of those embarrassing life moments where you don't really know exactly what you're supposed to do except not eat it. But you don't really know what to say. I don't know that anybody else's serving was touched. I watched mine be. I actually didn't track. I mean, I was watching. I don't think anyone else's meal was offended by spittle, but mine was strategically targeted. And so I just opted out of eating that. But that is, that's just mind blowing. And forget COVID. I mean, long before COVID, if it's you alone, you can fondle your armpit and then make a grilled cheese sandwich. You really can. But if you have guests, just be conscious that your guest is sitting there with you in the kitchen, and they probably, maybe I'm out on a limb with this, but they probably don't want you sucking your fingers and then fondling their dinner. I'm just guessing, but perhaps I'm alone with that.
How many the worst part is how many times does that happen and you've never seen it?
Well, of course, because you've got to figure that in restaurants, I mean, the fact that it blows my mind that in restaurants, they feel the need, mind you, to post for the employees that they are supposed to wash their hands
Right.
before they return. Like, does this not fall under the heading of common sense? What were they doing before you posted it? And I also have to believe that if they are washing their hands, they were washing them before the posting. And if they weren't, my guess is they're still not.
That's
Just my guess.
That's
And that goes under the heading of something you've been teaching and preaching, Ken, for this whole year, which is a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah.
It's an old saying, but man, oh man, is it ever both brilliant and accurate.
It's true.
People, for the most part, people are going to do what it is they do. And
Yeah.
an unsolicited education seldom sticks, which is my verbiage of the same idea. If someone didn't ask you about a particular thing that they want more information about, or they want to learn a more efficient way to address a particular matter, or a shortcut in business or whatever, if they didn't ask, the likelihood that what you bestowed upon them is going to stick is minimal. That doesn't mean you shouldn't give it the old college try, but I would keep the expectations fairly low, because I've just noticed that pattern. And in fact, we observed this recently. Ken, you and I did, when an opportunity was presented for people to attend something that could feasibly have been life-changing at no charge. Career-wise, could have been an opportunity to cultivate relationship capital. And it's no skin off my back, because it doesn't affect me one way or the other. But I couldn't help but notice that even when it is put on your front porch,
Yeah.
it blows my mind, Scott, and I want to bring you in on this. It blows my mind that when shortcuts or pieces of wisdom, nuggets of understanding, strategies that work, and they've been proven to work time and time again, you could bundle all of them up and put them in a little bassinet and place it on someone's front porch, and it would be ignored. And that French fries the circuitry of my brain. And so I think there is a specific prototype that is wired to win. And those that are wired to win will pay attention to those things. It's just what they hunger for. It's what they thirst for. But those who are not wired to win, and I don't think it happens at birth. I think we have to learn how to either wire ourselves to win or not. But if we haven't made the effort to wire ourselves to win, then all of those available helping hands that are being extended to us will go under or utterly unutilized. And it's just a weird thing. Has nothing to do with sucking one's fingers and then making your food, but it is an interesting thing. And I got to observe that actually last night, when a number of people were invited and to talk with Blair Hayes and get to know Blair, and to get to know Dee Wallace at no charge, and to cultivate relationship capital. It can only work for you. It will certainly never work against you. And Ken, I watched Ken do it. He connected with both of those people. He had fun words to say. And so now when they interact next time, and they will, don't know when it will be. Maybe Blair will be on his show. Maybe Dee Wallace will be on Ken's show. But it will certainly be an easier door to open, because they have established relationship capital, the single most spendable currency in the world.
People don't understand that. In fact, I really, after we got finished talking about it last night, I thought, maybe I need to create another course or a mini course on how to make better connections with. I mean, it's fundamentals of being a human, and it could genuinely help you in sales or in your business. I don't want to get into sales training, because that is I don't want to be in that. There's too many cooks in that kitchen already. But I think that people don't know how, like, they don't see, like, hey, I'm going to have the opportunity to hang out. Like, if I was a radio guy, or I wanted to be a stage speaker, and I had the opportunity to hang out with you two guys. And oh, hold it, that's right, I do. But like,
Right.
but I can learn. Like, I can learn from you, with especially if I'm good at placing questions in the right place, and you're not going to hold back. Yeah, Ken, when you get up on stage, you want to, don't vomit is a good first step.
That's a good rule. Yeah.
but anyway, yeah,
Or do it backstage. Right?
Yeah, right. But it blows me away how many people don't know how to, or don't have the desire. I don't know what the word is, but they don't foster these potential relationships. They don't put any effort into it at all. It blows me away. But they will complain about not being able to pay their bills.
Let's see if Scott has it. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
And I want to circle back to this, but you said you didn't have one, Ken. And I want to see what Scott does. But I really think I think we need to cover this for the last few minutes of the show. But Scott, what did you have that was wrong this week?
I just want to know, because I fixed the turkey for Thanksgiving, and I just want to know who decided that the neck and the other stuff needed to go up the turkey's butt for you to pull it out before you cook. I mean, they couldn't have possibly put it in a separate bag or something.
Save the neck for me,
So
Clark.
You think it's wrong that there wasn't a better location,
Better
chosen to
location than,
stash?
I mean, putting the neck up that's just wrong. So
That's
next year I'm buying a turkey breast, not a whole turkey.
Maybe that particular turkey had been told his whole life that he had his head up his butt.
oh my God.
And he did in death as well.
And death as well, even posthumously.
Posthumously, cranial rectal inversion. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. So I think it's not disconnected to say, under the heading of "that's just wrong," is, are you, and I'm actually throwing this out there to our viewers. I think it's true probably in all businesses, but there are some key ones that are especially difficult. And I'm sorry, but you cannot, and I'm going to say it with an increased measure of authority, you must not miss the bus. You can't afford to miss the bus. And so what's happening is I'm finding that you will have people who are even studying, they're spending large sums of money on seminars and all, and that's all great. I mean, it truly is. And they're reading inspirational books, or maybe they're getting something from our show, which is fabulous. That being said, though, there needs to be a part of you that is constantly, stay with me guys on this, constantly on the watch, where you're noticing when opportunities present themselves. And those are the ones you must not miss. Because what you would study for 25 years about in a book, if you don't know how to capitalize on an opportunity when it shows up in your lap, because you haven't cultivated the radar that says, this is damned important. In fact, it's so important that I actually need to stop what I was planning on doing. And that doesn't mean all things. Obviously, there's some things you need to finish up and you need to stay in the lane you're in. But there are so many things that are not a priority. So, for example, if last night I were an actor watching reruns of the Andy Griffith Show, those reruns aren't going anywhere. I can watch the recorded television shows later, but right now I've got a chance to bolster my career by going into a room and speaking with a feature film director, which is an experience I've never had. And that's so true for so many of my actors. It's an experience they've never had, and it's available, it's now, and it's free. And you can learn something from them, probably several things that are life-changing. And or you simply begin to establish a relationship. And in doing so, you realize, wow, that was fairly easy to open up. And now what used to be esteemed to be intimidating no longer is. And Scott, Ken, I would say this is its biggest value. is I think so often people wrongly deify things, and I call it pedestalizing things. They put it up on a pedestal, and it seems to be inaccessible. So one of the great things that can occur is when you get used to being up there yourself and realize, wow, we just had a wonderful conversation. So now you begin to see yourself more as a peer.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it is only true that really, really lofty things can be experienced in your life once you consider yourself to be deserving of them. Meaning you have to have a level of deservedness that it makes sense for you that these things are occurring. And those things occur when you develop relationships. I'm just saying, folks, we can't afford to miss the boat. And the boat does come by, or the train or the bus. Those things do come by. So never, first of all, never have your life, never have it planned 100% of the time. Do not plan your life away. Have broad strokes idea, have certain categories where you're certain, I am going to do this, and I'm going to do this. I'm probably going to do this. I might do this. But in that overall equation, make sure you have a fairly substantial sized pie slice of your time
Yeah.
set aside for the beautiful, spontaneous developments that show up, like when your buddy comes to see you in Las Vegas, and all of a
Absolutely.
sudden you decide, I would normally go to bed at such and such a time, but how often is Glenn in Vegas? Answer, we've never met.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Scott sets aside, this is exactly what I'm talking about, buds. He sets aside what would have been his normal bedtime and trades that in for an experience that is not readily available, which
And
is,
I've been talking about ever since.
but I mean, it's beautiful because
Because it was such a great experience. I
but
mean,
the
you're
way
exactly
you
right.
handled that
Yeah.
moment, Scott, what that tells me is that you are spontaneously available for unique and special circumstances when they arise. So, I mean, you can train your butt off, you can study, you can attend seminars, you can read, you can do all of that. But if you don't have the common sense to stay on notice for when a good opportunity shows up, then your failures should not be a surprise to you.
Absolutely.
I gotta say, to kind of reiterate your point about D. Wallace and
Blair Hayes.
Blair. First off, two very heart-centric human beings that are, I mean, living life from their hearts. They're amazing. Second, the humility was incredible, like just absolutely incredible. And I mean, if I were an actor, I almost said pursuing. If I were an actor wanting a career as an actor, I would. I mean, gosh, you could have. You could have developed a serious relationship there with those folks. It was rather amazing. But anyway, yeah, I agree with everything you just said, man. I think that you gotta stay ready. I mean, you have to stay ready and you know, I know it was just not too long ago. Somebody's like, well, I don't do anything like that on Sunday. It was to meet with me to have me potentially, spend money with them. And I'm like, well, I have time on Sunday afternoon. No, I don't do Sundays. And I'm like, is it a big church day for? No, I just don't. I don't work.
Yeah, I've set aside Sundays as the day not to do anything. Really? Because Steven Spielberg's in town and he wanted to have lunch with you.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, like you've got to, I think people are just set in their programming and, well, my granddad didn't work on Sundays and so I don't, or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that if you want more out of life, you got to be willing to do more. Eric said Shomer Chavez. That's from the Big Lebowski. I don't roll on Walter, you're not even Jewish, man.
It's Shomer Shabbos is the way to pronounce that. Shomer Shabbos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
Scott, I see things. I see when things are brewing in your head.
Well, yeah. I mean, When you were saying that, the thing that I was thinking gets back to the whole sports thing. Man, I love. I'm a huge fan of the Colts. I watched the Colts game today. I was so involved. I was involved in it. I hurt for them, and I have yet to change the score of any game because I'll never be on the field. And I think we have a nation of spectators, who want to cheer or boo other people's success, never realizing that if they just get on the field, they could make a difference and change the score of their own life, the score of their own game. And, it's the whole, the whole Theodore Roosevelt thing about, the man or woman in the arena. Jim Rohn talked about this, and we talk a lot about Jim Rohn, but he said, if the analogy he used is the person that says, calls his friend and says, "You can't believe it. I have all of this gold that I've just found in my backyard. There's more gold than I know what to do with. Get a bucket and a shovel and come over and get all the gold you need." And the friend says, "Do you know what they want for shovels these days?"
Right.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Can I piggyback on that story with something that came from Dr. Wayne Dyer that I heard many, many years ago, and it was a story about lack. And the story was about a woman who has an 8-year-old son that she takes out. She's a single parent. She takes the kid out to the beach, and he heads out into the water and is interacting with the other kids that are out there and playing. And she's just a little nervous about it because the waves are picking up. And so she's watching as his head kind of dips under as a wave blocks her view, and she can't see for a couple of seconds. And then the water flattens out, the wave comes over the top, and there he is, and he's still playing. So she's not completely at ease. And lo and behold, after about 30 minutes, he's been out there, a wave comes in, it drops down, she can see, and he's not there anymore. And she looks to be sure, and sure enough, the number of heads, the boys that were out there, it was, he's not there. And she rushes and grabs a lifeguard and says, "I think my son has gone under, please." And the lifeguard hauls butt out into the water, and it's crystal clear out there, so he could see the boy is in fact on the sand underneath. And he brings him up, swims him back to the beach, lays him out, and is doing compression moves. And he's pounding on this kid's chest, and it is not looking good at all. And finally, after about a minute and a half of just this vicious CPR stuff, he's doing the whole bit and blowing. This kid blows out lungs full of water and starts breathing again. And the lifeguard turns to the woman and says, "He's going to make it, ma'am." And the woman looks at him and says, "He had a hat."
Yeah. Look, I got to show you guys.
Isn't that a great story?
That is so good.
He had a hat. So how many of you, and hopefully the answer is none, but how many of you, when something magnificent or miraculous or awe-inspiring is happening right under your nose, and where your focus is on the thing that's wrong?
Yep.
And you've got, seriously, miraculousness. You've got a wide open gate. You've got opportunity galore, and it is right in front of you. And you're busy noticing the speck of dirt that's on the carpet, or he had a hat. What were you going to say, Ken? And I know we're winding down.
Yeah, Scott brought this up. I want to show you guys.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
that
goodness.
is one of the greatest ever.
Can you please read it?
Oh my God. Scott, can you see it? I
can see it if Scott can't. Go ahead, Scott.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself for a worthy cause, who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat.
Man, that's beautiful.
Isn't that incredibly written? That is just...
It's not easy
What
to
a-
hold this thing that whole time. It's heavy.
You did good, Ken. And
There's your arm
Scott, you
workout
did
for the
good
day.
to
It's
read it.
it's arm day.
Woo! I'm sweating.
You did a great job reading that, Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, we did abandon. I know it's time for us to be done, but we should at least not ignore the fact that a couple of people offered movies from those periods.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to see what some of them are. My offering of the 50s was going to be a film with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine called The Apartment,
Ooh,
which
what a
won Best Picture in
Oh.
1959.
great-
And I
was
just don't want to
Fred
ignore.
McMurray- Fred McMurray was
I believe Fred McMurray was in that film. Yes.
because he's such a bad.
He played a lot of bad guys
did,
before he
and then
went
My
into
Three
My
Sons
Three
was-
Sons.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, wrong number. Remember that?
Who said sorry, wrong number?
No, I was.
Was that yours?
Have you ever seen that movie? Sorry,
I have
wrong
not
number?
seen it.
Do you want to? Can I give you a spoiler alert?
Sure. By the way, I didn't watch the Hillbilly movie last night because of you, Scott.
It's
It
kinda
came on and
worth-
Carolyn goes, "Oh, I want to see this." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to see it alone because I trust my bud Scott."
Well, it's not. It's one of those. It's not. It's not a horrible. You're going to think, oh, but it's just so cliched. It's just, I was disappointed in the script. Sorry, wrong number was a Barbara Stanwyck, Fred McMurray movie from early 50s, maybe late 40s.
Was
And-
Barbara Stanwyck High Chaparral?
Big Valley.
Oh, Big Valley. That's what it was.
And she is an invalid, so she's in bed and she can't move. And Fred McMurray, her husband, gets a hitman and he's going to kill her. And then he has a change of heart. And back then it was payphones, and he's doing everything he can to call the hit off. He realizes he's made this horrible mistake, and the hitman goes in the house, and she's screaming that, oh my gosh, there's somebody in the house, there's somebody that and she's trying to call the police, and she hangs up, and the guy, the way the movie ends, spoiler alert, the guy kills her, and Fred McMurray is desperately trying to call the house to tell her to call and get out of there, and the killer just picks up the phone and says, sorry, wrong number.
Mm.
Wow.
And that's the end.
Wow.
Talk about film noir. Talk about that's the end. You keep waiting on something. They don't make them like that anymore.
Mm.
I don't have any movies from that era that I can.
Well, we had some people that chimed in with them, and I'm curious. Someone said Goldfinger.
Oh, what a great one. One of my favorite of all time, Glenn, is Giant.
Oh, sure.
Gosh, I love that movie.
Yeah, Giant was a giant. It was huge.
By the way, trivia thing, James Dean's character, and who ages from 20 to 60 in the movie,
In Giant,
in
yes.
Giant, was Jet Rink, which is how they came up with the name J.R. Ewing.
From Dallas. Wow. I worked with Larry Hagman on his final day as an actor.
Did you really?
How
Wow.
cool
I've
was
heard
that?
he was a nice guy.
He was. I did 2 years on the reboot of TNT's version of Dallas.
Yeah.
And Larry was so terribly sick those last few months. And he would
Wow.
go from getting chemo to the set.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
He would start his day in chemo and then come from there to the set. And he didn't need the money,
No.
but acting was his great love. So he died doing what he loved.
Wow.
And it was right around Thanksgiving time, and we wrapped up to take our weekend off, and he never made it back to set, and he died the following week.
Wow.
But we shared his last day
My goodness.
as an actor. And I
Wow.
want to close with this because it's a Larry Hagman, since you brought up Larry.
Yeah.
I was one of the greatest, most enviable moments of my life was sitting in this gorgeous, stunningly beautiful Mercedes Benz, and I'm driving, and Larry Hagman is my scene partner. And they're going to be picking us up once we arrive at South Fork, and we're coming down the driveway, but there's no camera in the car. They're going to catch us when we get there. So it's just Larry and I talking. And there are all these tourists that are all these gawkers that are all over South Fork watching us film the great series Dallas. And he goes, "Hey, Glenn, and of course, Larry was a fellow Texan from the Weatherford area. So he goes, "Glenn, buddy, you see all them people?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "There's a lot of them over there." And I said, "Yeah." And I thought I could read it. I could see it coming. He was going to say, "Stay humble, my friend. And don't you ever forget those people made you. They made me. Don't ever, ever take them for granted, because without them, you don't have the glorious life that you have. I don't." That's what I thought he was going to say. Here's what he actually said. He said, "You see all those tourists over there, the fans of the show? Look at them all. There's a lot of them." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't ever forget this. Every one of them's a pain in the ass."
Oh my God.
Hand to God. Hand to God.
Oh my
I have
God.
never misread a moment
Oh my-
more incorrectly than that, because I thought this was Larry's moment where he's going to just tell me that you got to stay in gratitude. And then he added, he goes, "Yeah, they get in the way all the time."
Oh my God. That's
Hey, gentlemen, I think we're about wrapped up.
Yeah.
That's
Scott,
a
I meant
wrap.
what I said. You look great, bud. Your weight loss is
Oh.
continuing, and you
Yeah.
just look
Thank you.
healthy. You look happy, and I'm
Thanks,
so
you.
grateful to see it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
great to see you guys. It's so great to see you, Glenn.
I love
when
you
were here.
both. I hope it was a blessed 4-day stretch of Thanksgiving. And you know what? Let's keep it going year round.
Let's do it.
That's
I'm in.
thanks living. You betcha.
Thanks, living. I loved that you
Yeah.
brought that up on your show this week.
I appreciate it.
Love
You
that.
guys all have a great week. Thanks for watching us. And
Yeah.
Scott, can you
I'll
take
take
us out?
Sure, you bet. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune in again next week, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. It's the Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott. See you next week.
Good night, guys.
Great week. Bye-bye.